The Beyond the Fame podcast is sponsored by Catoctin Creek Distillery in Loudoun County, Virginia. Taste Virginia's most awarded whiskey crafted with care, character, and a commitment to excellence. Whether you're a seasoned whiskey lover or just beginning your journey, this is a bottle worth discovering. Available online at www.catoctincreek.com or wherever fine spirits are sold. Must be 21 to drink alcohol. And of course, this podcast would not be possible without our longtime sponsor, the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top artists and entertainers of our time. Happy 50th birthday to hometown chef Bryan Voltaggio, who grew up right here in Frederick, Maryland. We spoke when he competed on Bravo's Top Chef All-Stars in March 2020, which was obviously just weeks into COVID-19, providing a bittersweet time capsule of how the pandemic affected the restaurant industry.
Bryan Voltaggio,
who is competing Thursdays on Bravo on Top Chef All-Stars LA. Of course, a local guy here in Frederick, Maryland. So we were just joking before we got on here that we are literally blocks from each other because I live in Frederick too, but calling.
Yes,
we're taking the time
we're
to
staying
join.
at home. Yeah, for sure. Life has definitely changed around, everywhere. Obviously, our two restaurants, Volt and Family Meal in Frederick. Volt is temporarily closed currently right now, obviously due to COVID-19. And then Family Meal, though, we have a to-go operation that we are continuing to operate. So if you get a chance and you get out, since you're only over on Bent Street, come swing over east. You pick up some food.
Now, what did before we go into the show, just break down that decision. Why did you guys decide to close Volt but leave Family Meal?
Yeah, so Volt, what we did was we actually did a pop-up wine shop for a few days, and just offered some of our inventory, some of our harder to get wines that people don't normally see in retail, and we did that to just try to generate some cash flow for payroll and for our team, but. Volt is not, a typical experience that you would have, on the road or to go. That's more of a in the restaurant experience, for our diners. And so we just decided it would make more sense to do that and channel our efforts, to our other restaurant, which is Family Meal, which is right in downtown Frederick as well. And there we're doing a to-go operation 4 to 8 daily with even now cocktails to go, which is a new thing despite the, obviously the concerns of what's going on around there. We, at least the state allowed us to do some things to be a little bit more nimble and try to, generate some income for our team.
I mean, how much has it affected business so far? Do you find people still ordering takeout? Or?
Yeah, no. I think the general consensus is across, everyone who's trying to do this effort, you're seeing 20% of your typical revenue, which is exactly what we're seeing over at one of our restaurants at Family Meal. And unfortunately it's just, what we need to do to try to keep some people employed and, obviously also, for the community offer, and people are cooped up, they want to have, there's so many recipes they could probably think of to cook out of their pantry. And so at least there's a change of pace. We're trying to keep some normalcy in our lives, even though we're respecting obviously the dangers of, of what's around us and respecting obviously the virus and making sure that everybody is staying safe.
For sure. Crazy times. All right, well, let's talk. The reason we're here on the call is Top Chef All-Stars LA, Thursdays on Bravo.
Right.
Remind our listeners, before we get to, this year's season, remind us the first time you were on. I think it was back on season 6 of Top Chef. And you lost to your brother Michael back in 2009. Memories of that?
I know, everybody likes to remind me of that. It's fantastic.
Just like I'm trying to stoke the brother rivalry a little bit.
Yeah, right. The first time I competed was in Las Vegas. I lost to Michael. It was more than 10 years ago at this point. It was just after I opened my first restaurant, Volt. Decided to go into the show. After that, I also went back. I competed on Top Chef Masters. It was an opportunity to go back and compete again. I mean, that's what I really love about Top Chef is the competition. And there, I also was a runner-up. So I've been in second place twice. roughly. And so it was time to go back for a third time and see if I can get a win this time.
Yeah, maybe third time's a charm. It's always a bridesmaid, never a bride. You second place, and now maybe this will be the first place tonight.
We'll see. Yeah.
All right. So, remind us, explain the premise of this season. It's called Top Chef All Stars LA. What makes this season different? How'd they round up the contestants?
Yeah, I mean, this season is everyone who has made it really far in a competition. And it spans not every single season, but the majority of the last 16 seasons. There's returning chefs, whether they were runner-up in their season or made it to the finale. Some of them at least passed Restaurant Wars, which is a common challenge that you find in most seasons of Top Chef, and that's kind of like the benchmark. You get it past Restaurant Wars, and you've kind of gone through the majority of the competition, and so everyone on this season has made it, at least to that point, and all very, very talented people. There's actually 3 of us from season 6 in Las Vegas. There's Kevin Gillespie, Jen Carroll, and myself. Which, a lot of people reference that season because that was also a very, really tough competitive season. I mean, they've all been great and very, competitive, but I mean, I think that season stood out a lot. And so having 3 contestants back from that one is going to be challenging. Kevin's a great cook and also a good friend. That's the other part too, is that a lot of these chefs, I know majority of them, we're all colleagues and friends now. And so, much like the first season of Top Chef I ever did when I was competing against my sibling, those friendships and everything are kind of set aside, for the moment while we're competing during the challenges, and yet, high fives afterwards. So, it's a very unique situation going back and competing, with people.
And aren't there some DC ties to some of the other ones too? Like Eric and Jennifer also have DC ties.
Eric
right?
Ajapong, also is on there. He came through and he did a stage at Volt at one point, a while back. So we knew each other before this. I actually went to Kentucky in his season. It was a part of a table that he served. That he was a chef testant during that time. He was one of the chefs competing, and actually went back for a mentor challenge. So I know a lot of these chefs, in various ways. Obviously Jen Carroll has ties to DC too as well. So I mean, it's a very well-rounded season. There's chefs from all over the country. Brian Malarkey from San Diego. There's Nene Nugent from New York. I mean, there's chefs from all over, and all seasons really of Top Chef. Majority of them are all represented.
Awesome. Now, remind us of in case our listeners might have missed last week. So last week was the season premiere, episode 1.
Yes.
What sort of what was the quick fire challenge and the elimination challenge? Because you made it through.
So I made it through, or you wouldn't be talking to me right now. So the quick fire challenge was the classic mise en place challenge, which is I think that's Tom's favorite challenge of all time, where there's 3 different challenges that we had to do. One was turning artichokes, the other one was segmenting oranges, and the last one was cracking almonds. And so it was to divide everybody up in teams. Whoever got first, done first in each one, moved on and got to jump in a car and head to the Top Chef kitchen to start the dishes. So I made it through the artichokes. So I was a part of the first group to head back to the Top Chef kitchen. So it gave us a time advantage, to cook our dishes. We had to present 2 dishes using all of the ingredients. And we did a roasted artichoke dish with a aerated yogurt and sumac. And then we also did a artichoke tortelloni with a brodo. We ended up winning the quickfire, and that was my first quickfire win in Top Chef history, even though I was a part of a team. So I was pretty happy about that. And then we went on to our elimination challenge, which we did a open pit barbecue, cooking a seafood spread and a cohesive menu amongst our teams. And there's 3 people or 3 chefs in each team. And we did that by the ocean, on the beach, and served an amazing table of chefs, including Nancy Silverton and Jonathan Jeremiah Tower, and obviously Gail Padma and Tom Colicchio, Marcus Samuelson was at the table. So there's a lot of heavy hitters. I mean, a lot of amazing chefs in our industry that were there judging the table. Did not win that challenge, but I did not go home. So here I am in week 2.
Awesome. And what can we what sort of things are in store in tonight's episode? I mean, the it airs in a couple hours from now, so our interview isn't going to air before it.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Here's the thing that I learned, and so this is me back again at Top Chef, and with respect to everybody who's watching, you know, I try not to give away too much, because actually when I won my quickfire challenge last week, actually Bravo put out on Twitter that, you know, hey, Bryan got his first quickfire. And I reposted it, and then the West Coast just they annihilated me. Spoiler, like, you know, I started getting a lot of. I mean, it was all in fun, you know, but everybody was upset. So, you know, it's, you know, it's obviously every challenge is new. You know, this season that I experienced, it's, you know, like nothing I've ever you know, seen before. It's a lot tougher. I can tell you that right now, because the caliber of chef, you know, that's in that kitchen all together. You know, these are all, I mean, literally all stars. I mean, these are all chefs who, you know, are, you know, doing some pretty amazing things out there in the industry right now, and, you know, have been through these challenges and understand it. So the playing field is super even, and it's literally coming down to grains of salt.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, you know, take me back. You know, we'll have a lot of local listeners that, you know, love the Frederick roots. You know,
right.
Where exactly did you grow up? You know, what high school? I'm a Linganore guy myself, but where did you come up?
Yeah, no. So I mean, I grew up in Frederick, Maryland. I went to Thomas Johnson High School. That's where I graduated. And then after that, I ended up going to the Culinary Institute of America. I first started cooking in Frederick. I worked at the Francis Scott Key Holiday Inn. That's where I got my first cook job. But then decided to go to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. Lived in New York City for about 7 years working for Charlie Palmer. After that, came back to the D.C. area, opened Charlie Palmer Steak for him. And then in 2008, I opened Volt. And right in downtown. So I always knew, I think I was going to come home and open this restaurant. You know, I actually did a project at the Culinary Institute of America that, you know, where you build a restaurant on paper, and it was all about a restaurant in an old brownstone in downtown Frederick, and I opened it 10 years after I graduated.
Wow.
And then, you know, I think it was 2008 when the restaurant opened, and then 2009, you know, I left and went to go compete on Top Chef for the first time. And obviously from there, I mean, you know, we've been able to do some pretty, you know, incredible things. You know, I work a lot with No Kid Hungry, which is, you know, a big deal right now, obviously, because there's a lot of people that, you know, are out of school, and they're a huge support of those programs, even though the county is doing a great job. But, you know, No Kid Hungry connects kids to meals, you know, and sort of bridges those gaps, especially during the summertime. So I've been fortunate to work with them for years and raise money, you know, that impacts, you know, people right here in Frederick, you know, in Frederick County, but also in all the surrounding DC metro area.
That's really big. When you were a kid, were you always interested in food, or, you know, were you peering over your parents' shoulders, you know, cooking, or, you know, how do you actually get bit by the bug, as they say? Yeah, no,
my entire family, I think everybody cooked. You know, my grandparents, my mother for sure. I mean, she cooked mom food. You know, it was all, you know, pretty amazing stuff. But we always had dinner at 5:30 no matter what. Like, that was, you know, sports, you know, crazy schedules, you know, a family of 3 children. She always made sure that we had from scratch meals. I mean, yeah, we had our occasional pizza nights just like everybody else, but food was a big part of our growing up. We lived in Frederick. We had a garden out back, you know, so I think that just the exposure to just, you know, food means a lot to us all, you know, got me interested. But it wasn't until I was in high school where really I just wanted to be a cook, because I was a busboy at first, and I didn't really like clearing plates. But I'd rather, you know, I saw fire and knives and, you know, craziness in the kitchen. And I asked the chef, I was like, look, if I take this vocational program in high school, you let me cook. And he said yes. And that's how I got my shot. So I started at 15.
I was a busboy and waiter over at Liberty Road Seafood, so I feel you.
Oh, yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So it just, yeah. I don't know. I mean, growing up, it seemed like it was just, you know, for me, it was a lot cooler to be in the kitchen. And so that's the reason why I took the job. And, you know, from there, I fell in love with it, and I just turned it into a career.
That's awesome. What's been the biggest takeaway from running Volt all these years? Like how pleased are you with that? I mean, this is a down institution, and a lot of people when they when Frederick Tourism or any of the local tourism always cite you guys as sort of centerpiece of like a downtown restaurant renaissance. How does that make it feel?
It makes it feel great. I mean, when I set out 12 years ago to open up this restaurant, I thought there was some, fine dining in Frederick, but the experience that we brought to Volt was like something we haven't seen in this region. And so, it was very new, but it was also very, supported by the community. And, it's obviously led to the now 12 years of being a part of that. This is the first time I've ever had to close it for an extended period of time. So this is very unique territory for us, but we'll be back. I mean, nobody needs to worry about that. It's just we had to obviously close, due to current climate. But, I look forward to what the next, 10 and 12 years is going to bring for that restaurant. I mean, I think it's always going to be a part of downtown. It's the first restaurant I ever opened, and, it's obviously my flagship and my baby. And so, we wanted to continue to be a part of the community.
For sure. And family too. And then, of course, real quick for our DC listeners, remind us about, you got Voltaggio Brothers Steakhouse down at National Harbor, right? Take us into the idea to expand down there.
Yeah, so that was an exciting project to be a part of. So we have, we're with MGM, we have Steakhouse, Voltaggio Brothers Steakhouse, right in National Harbor. We also recently, a year ago, opened Estuary, which is with Hilton and Conrad in downtown DC. So those two projects, they're collaborations between both my brother and I. And as we're starting to, expand our careers and things are changing a little bit, Michael and I have been, opening some things together, even though there was a time where there was some rivalry. Now we've sort of set that aside, and now we're working together on new projects, which has been, extremely exciting. And so obviously, those two restaurants now are also temporarily closed, but they'll reopen soon. We look forward to that. So, hopefully we'll see people in late spring.
Well, final question. Once all of this show is over, if you ever have a free day from all the busyness and craziness of running all these restaurants, what is your ideal meal? I don't want to say favorite food, but you know what I mean? Like if you sit down and you had to choose one, desert island, what would be your meal?
Oh, wow. If I had to choose one meal.
That's my favorite movie. I hate it.
No, I know. I mean, for me, it's just, really just a family gathering, family dinner. I mean, I love cooking outside, just a barbecue in the spring is great. But I'm also I'm a big fan of Japanese cuisine. So I love sushi. So I love sort of an over the top experience. There's restaurants all over this region that provide, something like that. I don't know. For me, it always changes, but I think just a good home cooked meal with my family is what I really enjoy. I'm in restaurants, on a daily basis, and so sometimes, what I cook at home is very different than what I cook in the restaurants, and so it's a little bit more comforting.
For sure. Well, hopefully we get some of those outdoor cookouts and barbecues. Get back to that soon after all this stuff dies down. Stay safe. Yeah. Stay, indoors or whatever you got to do. But we keep the good food coming.
Yeah, we'll do. Well, stay safe yourself, and thank you very much for the time. And, hopefully you get a chance to watch the episode tonight. Should be a lot of fun.
A few months after our convo, Volt rebranded as the more casual dining experience Thatcher and Rye in October 2020 before being sold to new ownership, first as The Ordinary Hen in 2024, and currently Seventh Sister, still located on Market Street. The Voltaggio's East Street restaurant Family Meal has since changed its name to Showroom, while the brothers have since opened the Y Oak Tavern in the new Visitation Hotel downtown. Outside of their hometown of Frederick, the brothers sold Estuary at the Conrad Hotel in City Center, D.C. to instead focus on their Voltaggio Brothers Steakhouse at MGM National Harbor in Oxon Hill, Maryland. They have also launched Volt Burger in partnership with Live Nation at 50 concert venues nationwide. Hear my other convo with both Voltaggio brothers in the archives at BeyondTheFamePodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.